Welcome, friends of the Greasy Shop Rag. Today we're going to take a look at a Husqvarna 585 chainsaw. Customer complaint is that he can't get it started. It appears to be flooded every time he starts it, or attempts to start it. So we have previously diagnosed this saw as needing a new carburetor. And the 585 and the 592 don't look the same as what you're used to seeing under the hood of a Husqvarna. We're going to put a different carb on here and I'll show you the few differences there are. So right away you'll notice that there's a wiring harness connected to the air filter holder, which is now this big round adapter. It's a little bit different than we're used to seeing. A couple of screws here we're going to back out. I'm using a T20 bit for this. So this saw was flooding terribly when he tried to start it. And I had the carb off once already, and there was some schmutz on the needle. And I thought, well, there's your problem. Turns out that wasn't the problem. There's the throttle wire. It disconnects from the carburetor, much like any other Husqvarna, with that round ramp that the cable winds around. Then we're going to pull the cable right out of the holder. And now there's two more screws in the throat of the air filter holder. We'll back those out. And then the secondary throttle valve is going to be loose, that we can remove that as well. First we're going to unhook the saddles. That's something familiar we're used to seeing. There's that secondary throttle valve. And our air filter holder is loose. Pull the fuel line off the carburetor. And there we have it. It was pretty easy. Here's our new carburetor. Just making sure it looks the same as the old one. You can see the impulse line is a fitting that's built into the carburetor. Here we're reattaching the main fuel line to the carb. So this one had, I think, I didn't test it, but I think it had some kind of an internal leak, main check valve. But, you know, on a warranty claim, you only spend so much time on it before you just replace the thing. I mean, the guy only used the saw once and he ran into this problem, so it was a defect right from the beginning. And it is certainly cheaper sometimes to just replace parts than to diagnose them. If the factory's got to pay us labor to tear into a carb a second time, it's not worth it. So the carburetor's in place. It kind of snaps down into its home there. And then we'll slide that air filter holder into place. Now I want you to note that the choke and stop lever has got the spring on it, like we've seen on other Husqvarna models. And then on top of the carburetor there's a vent right there, and there's a hole in the top of the air filter holder that vent passes through. So you got to get the spring lined up, you got to get the vent passing through the hole in the air filter adapter, and then we drop our secondary throttle valve into place. This isn't physically connected linkage wise to anything else. The linkage just moves up and hits it. So it goes in there pretty easy. Look at which way it's turning. Righty tighty, lefty loosey. I mean, I call them interruptions, but I mean, it's all part of the workday, right? Someone needs to borrow a tool, you borrow them the tool. All right, so that feels fairly good. I mean, the Stop switch seems to be working. It's in place. We'll put the lower bolts in. Alright, our throttle cable gets put back into place on the air filter holder. The throttle wire goes back on the ramp on the linkage on the carburetor. So this is very similar to other Husqvarnas, except that air filter holder initially, it looks a lot different than what we're used to seeing. So, you got to wonder how much different it's actually going to be to swap it out, but it's not that big a deal. You got some wires, but they actually have this set up a little bit better with this wire just pushing into the side of the air filter holder rather than on an auto-tune model where it's snapped in way down low and you got to kind of put it together first before you put the holder in place. That other wire there would be used for, I believe, a GPS tracking module. Now we'll drop that air filter holder down into the saddles. Everything feels right. Throttle, choke. Let's get some fuel in here. We're going to see if this thing is going to run. Then I'll let it sit overnight and make sure it doesn't flood. So that's all I got for you on the Husqvarna 585 that wouldn't start due to flooding. Thanks for watching. Later.
Uh-huh.